We've got the Rinkside Roundup where we'll break down the top performers of this past week in the prospects world, and it's time for me to say goodbye. We'll get into that on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hadi, QMJHL and crossover scout for Elite Prospects, with Sebastian, USHL and crossover scout for Elite Prospects. And on today's show, we'll be breaking down the Rinkside Roundup, so the top performers of this past week. It's a weekly article that we put out on Elite Prospects that's free to read for all, where we break down the top performers in the prospects world, the notable names that are performing. So in the first segment, we'll focus on, the biggest name in the 2026 NHL draft. Gavin McKenna has been having a phenomenal time over in Medicine Hat. We'll get into that, as well as Zayne Parekh, who's up to 15 points in his last 5 games. It's absolutely ridiculous what this kid has been doing. And Justin Poirier, who just keeps on racking up goals in the KMJHL. That'll be the first segment. Then the second segment will look at 2 Habs prospects who've been performing really well this past week. Jacob Fowler over at Boston College. Oliver Kapanen, who's been loaned out to the SHL, is at a point per game right now in the Pro League. And Lenni Hameenaho, a New Jersey Devils prospect who continues to perform incredibly well, also against pros, but him in the Finnish Liga. Then finally, in the third segment, we'll take a moment to say farewell. It's my last episode at Locked On NHL Prospects, and we'll be breaking down kind of the last year and a half, how it's been, kind of reminiscing on the good times, and just taking a moment to appreciate this last episode here. So before we get into any of that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. If you're watching on YouTube, as usual, remember to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think of the episode. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rating and review, and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. So let's get started right away. Gavin McKenna, absolutely phenomenal week from the kid. Top ranked prospect in the 2026 NHL draft, and he just keeps digging a trench. He's on a historical run right now. Talk us through it, Sebastian.
Absolutely. I mean, this past week, Gavin McKenna racked up a goal and 7 assists for 8 points with the Medicine Hat Tigers, which puts him up to 79 points in 39 games so far this season. And if you have your mental maths on point, you will realize that's over 2 points per game as a D-1, something that no player in WHL history has done, according to a tweet that Hadi put out earlier this week. And overall, it's just been fantastic performances for Mike McKenna. And he got off the year to a quote-unquote slow start, about a point-a-game pace, but was struggling to just dominate shifts like he had last season, and especially after a nearly record-breaking tournament at the U18 Worlds in May, only because James Hagan's got like 1 more point than he did at that tournament. Was it not a record-breaking one? Yeah. Ever since then, he's been on fire. And so talk me through with his game and what's been exploding this season. What aspects are the ones that he has that have blossomed the most so far this campaign?
I think the word is control. Like he's gotten so good at not just blowing past defensemen and using his blistering speed, using his separating skill in order to create. He's gotten a lot more controlled in his approach. He's able to play small give and goes, just kind of slow down the pace of play, make the smart decisions in transition, make the smart passes in the offensive zone, not always going for that flashy player, that primary assist or that shot on goal. Just a lot more control of play. And, at the same time, given the fact that he's gotten more points per game so far in his draft -1 season than Connor Bedard has, I mean, make no mistake, Connor Bedard's upside is, clearly higher. We're talking about a generational prospect in Connor Bedard. Gavin McKenna, I still see him as just a notch below. But I don't think that plays. Yes, Medicine Hat is a lot more well built than the Regina Pass were in Connor Bedard's drafts -1. But at the same time, I mean, listen, Caden Lindstrom's not there. He's injured. Gavin McKenna's been playing with Oasis Weisblatt and newly acquired Ryder Ritchie on the top line there for Medicine Hat. It's not as much offensive support as you would guess. Connor Bedard wasn't really playing with much, but at the same time, the gap isn't as massive as people are making it out to be in terms of the quality of teammates between
Yeah.
Gavin McKenna's draft -1 and Connor Bedard's -1, right? Like it's there's a gap. Yes, Medicine Hat is a better team, but in terms of offensive support, Gavin McKenna is still by far the top scorer on this team.
He absolutely is. And I mean, you mentioned Caden Lindstrom, but also Andrew Bash has only been healthy for 23 games so far this season, which is about half of what they've played so far this year. And he's had 29 points in those games and been very impactful as a top six scorer in those minutes. But when he's been missing time, it really just has been the Gavin McKenna show. And there's been some weight on him as well to produce offensively this season because the goaltending's been very fine so far this year. I mean, Jordan Switzer's played the most games and has an 884 save percentage. Harrison Menigan has the next most with 20 games played and a 901. So definitely a weight on the offense to rack up the score to win those games. And with these injuries, that has been Gavin McKenna's prerogative. But to switch our lens a little bit, let's focus on a defenseman who's taken on that responsibility in the past couple games with Zayne Parekh, who, I mean, the last 5 games, he has 15 points. The last 10 games, he has 22 points, including 10 goals. He's a goal a game in his last 10. He has 8 goals in his last 5. Talk me through Zayne Parekh here.
It's just ridiculous what this kid's been doing over the last stretch. Since being rejected from the World Juniors, it's like a fire's been lit under him, and he's just taken over. And I mean, we'll get into it in a second, but there was one particularly very funny game that occurred against the Ottawa 67s. But yeah, overall, 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points in his last week. Phenomenal performance by Zayne Parekh, who continues to just build phenomenal chemistry with Michael Misa, who is also not at the World Juniors and could have been. So yeah, that game against the Ottawa 67s, I watched the whole game. It very much seemed like both of them were staring down Ottawa's bench every single goal they scored. I think the game ended 7-2.
7-2, and Zayne Parekh scored a hat trick. So
yeah,
I had many opportunities to stare down Dave Cameron in that game.
Absolutely, a hat trick and 1 assist. Michael Misa played phenomenally as well. And I think, when you watch these kids like stare down the bench and kind of make a whole show out of it, you can call it antics if you want. I see it as 2 kids using adversity as a motivation to win a game. Like that's what you want from players, is the ability to get energy, to get that motivation, that drive to win games from wherever they can find it. And if it's getting rejected from the World Juniors and playing against a coach who did that, yeah, go for it. So Breck and Misa continue to be just phenomenal together. The combination of skills, the willingness to play off each other, and the fact that their brains work at the same level gives me promise for both Parekh and Misa. Like they're on a really strong team. This built fairly well so far.
Yeah.
And both of them are benefiting a ton development-wise from each other. Like Parekh's feeding off of Misa, Misa's feeding off of Parekh in terms of their trajectories. I think this is good for both players, right?
I fully agree. And it also means that the Calgary Flames now hold both of the highest scoring defensemen in the OHL this season. Henry Muse is in first with 60 points. Then Zayne Parekh has 59. Then you have Sam Dickinson at 58 of the San Jose Sharks and Luca Morelli with 57. So you have a quartet of 2024 drafted blue liners from the OHL that are all back to back in points with just 1 point separating all of them. It's quite the race for the OHL defensive scoring title this year. But
absolutely.
To wrap up the segment, we're going back onto offense here, but staying with an undersized player. We have from the QMJHL and the Bécomo Drakkar, Justin Poirier, who is lighting it up once again offensively in the Q. This is a player that went over a goal a game in the playoffs last year, 50-goal regular season, and still slipped all the way to the 5th round to the Carolina Hurricanes, who quite gleefully snapped him up in that range. And he now has 36 goals and 66 points in 43 games as a 5'9" violent right winger. So talk me through his past week, and especially considering this was a player just 11 days off the cutoff to be eligible for the 2025 draft. Did the Canes get another gem here?
100%. I mean, I had Justin Poirier in my top 50. Like, I'm a big fan of his game. He's undersized, but he works his butt off. He can score from anywhere. And we saw that again this past week. 6 goals, 3 assists for 9 points in 3 games. He had 2 goals a game in this past week. And yeah, he's still a scorer. He's certainly that. I mean, he's still on the scorer side of things when you look at players. Like he's definitely more of a shooter. He looks for shot opportunities. He shoots from everywhere to a fault sometimes, but he's starting to develop the playmaking skill. He's starting to develop the chemistry that he needs, and especially playing with a guy like Matthias Malofsky, a Detroit. Not a Detroit Red Wing, a New Jersey Devils selection in the 5th round last year. Those two have combined really well so far for Bécomo. Um, they're playing off each other in really intelligent ways where Justin Poirier is not just receiving pucks in open ice and just sniping them on goal. He's, changing the angle of his attack, attacking downhill, freezing defenders, playing give and go, acting as a passer. This is really good for Poirier's offensive versatility. And this is exactly what I wanted to see from Poirier in moving forward, is playing with guys that he can trust to shoot the puck when they need to, which is taking some weight off of him scoring wise. Even though he has more goals and assists this year, the playmaking's definitely improved. But that's our first segment done. We'll get into our second segment here, where we have two Habs prospects to talk about, Jacob Fowler and Oliver Kapanen. And as well, we'll talk about Lenni Hameenaho as well in just a second. Let's just hear from our sponsors first here at Locked On NHL Prospects. If you're looking to buy cheap tickets last minute to any event, Game Time is the best place to get that done. Game Time is safe, secure, incredibly easy to use, and they're absolutely obsessed with saving you money. They've got deals at every step of the way to make sure you get the best price for your tickets. And now with all-in pricing that you can toggle in the app, you can see exactly what the price is for your tickets after fees, after taxes. That way you know exactly what you're paying for when heading into checkout. And it's not just for sports, comedy, theater, whatever requires a ticket, you can get on Game Time. You can get tickets up until the last minute before an event starts, and even sometimes an hour after it starts, you can still find tickets over at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, it's super simple. You just create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, so moving on to our second segment, we've got two Habs prospects to talk about in this segment, and we'll start with the goaltender that everyone is looking forward to seeing in a Habs jersey someday, maybe at the end of this season. We'll see how it works out, but Jacob Fowler is absolutely on fire in the NCAA so far, and for me, he's the undisputed best goaltender in the league. What do you think?
He's been fantastic in the NCAA. I mean, he sits fourth in pure save percentage in the league, but is the only among those four playing D1 hockey, which is a very important distinction to make. I mean, the universities ahead of him. I mean, we have Alexander Tracy from Minnesota State University, Mankato. Then we have Christian Stover from Bowling Green and Joshua Kotai from Augustana. So these are decent programs, but not at the same level as a Boston College, for instance. And Jacob Fowler started every single one except for 2 games this season for BC, and he is the player that exudes the calmness and control of the game that I think has led to Boston College being so dominant this season. He's such a rock on the back end, and he was last year as well. I mean, he had a 926 in his rookie campaign with 39 games played under his belt. But looking beyond just the statistics, it is the combination of high-end tools, high-end habits, but more than anything, competitiveness that makes him special, right?
100%. This kid is so competitive. And it's beyond just being competitive in terms of being aggressive on ice, trying hard to win games, and having the drive to do everything you can to win a game. It's how he approaches everything. This kid is one of the most mature prospects at this age that I've seen in a while. Everything I've heard about this kid is so bright. He studies the game extensively, and it really shows when he's playing. I think the change in his style has done a lot for his game. He went from, Fowler went from being this pretty hyper aggressive goalie in net in Youngstown, where he's just jumping left to right, kind of making big saves and struggling to recover on time. Now he's a lot more composed, a lot more poised. He relies a lot more on his footwork to stay square to pucks instead of just extending to make saves, which I think is great. It's helped his ability to absorb shots. It's helped his ability to control rebounds, control the tempo of the game. That adjustment for Jacob Fowler has been absolutely phenomenal so far. And he's still relatively overweight, but he's getting in shape. He's improving his frame and working on the right things in order to be more athletic, be more fleet of
Explosive.
foot, yeah, and explosive in net.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great adjustment there for Jacob Fowler. But we also have to
Mhm.
talk about Oliver Kapanen, who's not getting enough love at all, in my opinion, so far. He played a 12-game stint for Montreal at the start of the year, as like their 12th,
Yeah.
13th forward,
Yeah.
and got loaned out to Sweden, and we just stopped hearing about him. But he's been doing absolutely phenomenally over in Timrå in Sweden. 10 goals, 11 assists, 21 points on the season in 21 games. He had 3 goals this past week. Talk me through what's so interesting with this kid.
He's a really intelligent player that finds his way into fitting into systems really comfortably, especially at the European pro level. I think he's a very comfortable player. He's been excellent in Liga and in the Champions League in previous years, and was more than ready for the step up to the SHL with Timrå this season. And he's at just 1 point shy of a point a game. There's 2 players on his team that are over a point a game, but in terms of points per game, he's quite clearly then the third guy in line. And those 2 others are also players with NHL experience, and quite extensive ones at that, with Philip Helander and Jonathan Dahlin in the lineup ahead of him. But Kapanen's been so solid defensively too. He's a physical player, well positioned, good scanning habits. He applies a lot of pressure both on the forecheck and in the neutral zone especially. I love his ability to pick pockets, especially on European ice. I think that he's a player that reads the situation well enough to be a consistent threat at stealing possession in the neutral zone, which you don't really see from many European centers, especially at this age group when there is so much space available for the opposition, and a lot of bright spots with this player. But I'd love to hear your input on what have we seen from him this season, both with perhaps slight struggles in the NHL, not being fully ready for those fourth line minutes, but there being flashes of upside, with these very convincing performances in the SHL after being loaned back out.
Yeah, I think using his feet a lot more has been the main improvement, the main change in Kapanen's game that's helped him a ton. I find him to be a lot more dynamic now, both on and off the puck. He chases down carriers with quick crossovers. He lifts sticks, pivots quickly, heads up the ice. Again, just creates with crossovers up the ice as well. Like there's a real cohesiveness to his skill set now that really works at this level. And I think that the Habs made a phenomenal decision loaning him out instead of keeping him as their 13th forward all season. I'd much rather have Michael Pezzetta in that role than a 21-year-old with runway. So I think that this has been phenomenal for his progression. He's been working on the right things. He's been improving his ability to make plays at high speeds. I think this is great because it's going to help Kapanen get the opportunity to hit the ground running next season when he gets to training camp. And hopefully by then, he's cemented himself as a bottom 6 forward and has the opportunity to work his way up. I think that's great for his progression. But lastly, Lenni Hameenaho, another Finn, this one playing in Finland. He plays for Asset Pori in the Finnish Liga. He's a right winger drafted by the New Jersey Devils a couple of years ago in the second round. And he's been having a great season. I mean, he's got 36 points on the season, I think in 43 games. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe something like that. And he had 2 goals, 2 assists, and 4 points in this past week. And he's always been a pretty interesting player because he's been performing really well at a pro level since his draft year. But there are some clear weaknesses, some clear setbacks that could limit him at the NHL level, on NHL ice, at an NHL pace, right?
There really are. I mean, the feet are anything but dynamic. They're really clunky. He struggles to get to speed from a standstill, especially, which I think is going to be a big hurdle when he makes the transition to North American ice.
Yeah.
But what I have been really impressed by has been his ability to compensate for that lack of mobility with really quite impressive anticipation and reading of the play. He's consistently in dangerous spots, and he hits those spots at the right pace. He's not one to overskate or underskate those pockets or those lanes, and he's a very supportive piece in motion, even in transition, though he is limited, obviously, on puck as a carrier due to that lack of dynamism. He's a really good connective player, and he finds a way to get to become impactful and valuable to his team in whatever way he can. And at 6'1", 185 pounds as a right shot right winger, I think there's also some more runway for him to add some weight. He's never going to be a great skater, but I think it'll be interesting to see if New Jersey wants him to keep his weight down and focus on the skating, get up to an average level, or to allow that skating to remain below average, but to add on weight and muscle and become a bit more of a power forward and physical presence there on the wing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's identity moving forward that really matters for Hameenaho.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think he's going to do most of his damage off puck at the NHL level. That's going to continue to be a staple. It's a byproduct of having that slower pace, those heavier feet. But I think he'll make it work. He's got enough smarts, enough maturity, enough defensive ability, and a lot of effort as well in this game.
Yeah.
I think he makes it. But that's our second segment done. And now it's time to say goodbye. We'll look into our third segment here where we'll look back at the last year and a half at Locked On NHL Prospect and how fun it's been. By the way, Sebastian's staying on. I'm the one leaving. Just want to make that clear. But yeah, absolutely. So we're going to head into that in a sec. Let's just take a quick break first. Alrighty, so time to review the last year and a half with me leaving the podcast here. This is my last episode for Locked On NHL Prospects, and I've loved every second of being part of this Locked On family. I mean, the friendships I've made through Locked On have been phenomenal. I mean, Sebastian and I we predate Locked On, like we've been buddies for a while, and it was great to bring you on and have you be part of this great project. But I mean, Locked On Sharks, JD Young, Locked On Canadians, Laura and Ian, Locked On Islanders with Gil Martin, and so many more. Jack Bushman at Locked On Blackhawks. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I've been on so many great shows, made so many great guest appearances on this podcast, and had so many great moments. I think in terms of the moments we had on this podcast that really, I mean, stand out to me are mainly goofy things that probably didn't even make the cut, like
The blooper reels.
Yeah, like Lick Nardis comes to mind.
Yeah.
That was a pretty funny one that did
Yeah.
not make the cut. I accidentally called Nick Lardis Lick Nardis, and we had to take a moment and just try to calm down and be mature about things before we restarted the episode, which
Yeah.
was absolutely hilarious. That was my favorite recent moment, but I'd say the whole 2024 NHL draft segment, like portion of the year where it was our first year covering the draft together
Yeah.
on the podcast. I think that's probably my favorite era of the podcast. We did so many great things. We came up with the prospect spotlight. Like that was so amazing.
Yeah.
What's been your read on the past kind of what's been your read on the past year and a half? What's been your favorite like part of what's been your favorite era of Locked On so far with both of us on here?
I think era is a bit more difficult for me to define. There's definitely some moments that stand out, like the Millie outro from a couple months ago, where your cat came on screen for the outro. That was a nice little lighthearted moment. I think there's just countless blooper reels that never saw the light of day, where we were just like laughing for minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes on end. I can remember a couple laughing attacks of us trying to be composed, trying to restart an episode and us not being able to.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that the prospect spotlights from last year, as you mentioned, and that was a series that when we started doing that, it started to feel like, okay, it's coming together. We have these projects that we're pushing and pursuing, trying to make draft content more accessible as well. I think that's been a bit of a learning experience for both of us, of trying to both suit the episode and the information for people that are as nerdy as we are about this stuff, while still trying to make it accessible for more of your everyday hockey fan. I know that we're definitely more niche than most hockey podcasts are, but that's been a very fun kind of balance to try to find also in our dynamics and our interactions.
Yeah.
So I think like in the end, the thing I'm going to miss most is just the interaction, right? Like just like having these chats and progressing the talks that we have into the comment section below. And definitely gonna miss like the continuous learning as well. Like this is I think one thing that I always love with the podcast. There's always like this mutual challenge of learning and pushing each other in these ways. And I mean, our professional paths have changed certainly since we started the podcast.
100%.
When we were at Dobber Prospects and working very closely together there, leading the team, and then making the switch together over to Elite Prospects. So the podcast has followed us through quite the ways in these last year and a half.
Yeah, I think that when you look back at the Dobber Prospects days, I think that that plays into like this decision now for me, right? It's a lot more time to work with. Even when we were directors of scouting, I feel like now that we're Elite Prospects, I find myself so much I find myself so much more motivated to push hard in the direction of full-time scouting, of
Yeah.
you know giving it my all at Elite Prospects. And now with working full-time at my day job, making videos and articles every week for Elite Prospects with the podcast, like I genuinely I need a day off. And unfortunately, the only real place it made sense was to cut the Locked On NHL Prospects podcast out of my schedule. But it's not
Yeah.
an easy decision. It's against my wishes. It's just
Yeah.
I got to give my brain a break sometimes. I've been running on fumes for a while now, and I'm also proud of myself for making this decision, because
Yeah.
I could have stuck through it and just said, oh, this is part of life, suck it up. But I think at this stage of my life, I want to make sure that I make time for myself, for my family, for my friends. And
Yeah.
it's a heavy-hearted decision, and again, just so many great memories. And thank you to the listeners as well. I mean, you were talking about the fact that this isn't your casual watch. This podcast isn't for, it's not like any other Habs, any other NHL, team podcasts, right? If you look at Locked On NHL, you're looking at every NHL team. You can be a casual watcher of the Habs, you can be a casual watcher of the Leafs or the Blackhawks or the Red Wings. If you're a casual watcher of the MHL, get some help. Like, for real. Like, no one watches that league casually, right? So us sitting here and breaking down the MHL performances of Ivan Demidov or Matvei Michkov, not a lot of players watch these guys for fun. Like, a lot of people do this because it's a passion, because they love it, because they're obsessed with hockey. And that's what I love about this community that we've built here.
Yeah.
It's built around our common addiction to hockey, to scouting, to understanding what makes young players become great NHLers.
Mm.
It's exactly the home I wanted to build by starting this project. And shout out to Sean Woodley, who
Yeah.
worked tirelessly to make this work properly, constantly gives us feedback on the podcast. He's the NHL lead for Locked On NHL podcasts, for Locked On Podcast Network, and he's been absolutely phenomenal through all this. Shout out to David Locke for building this great, empire out of a podcast that started for just his football team and the team that he wanted to cover, expanded to the entire NFL, and expanded to the entire NBA, to the MLB, and now the NHL. I think that everyone involved in this project is just so lovely. Everyone I've talked to at Locked On, just a great family. So, Sebastian, you guys are in great hands with Sebastian. He's gonna take this thing to the moon and just continue to grow this project that we've started here. I'm just really happy that I was able to spend the last year and a half kind of growing as a person through this. I mean, I look back at my first episodes, and
Yeah.
it's so
They're tough
different.
watches. They're tough
Yeah.
watches to go back, I find, with all the podcasting ticks, but definitely nostalgic element to those rewatches, I find.
100%. I had a different setup. I was in a different apartment, and watching back our first episodes. I mean, we had to learn some things to know how to work off each other, and
One or two.
yeah, and
Yeah.
be cohesive. And I think that being directors of scouting together at Dauber, along with doing the podcast together, helped us both get to Elite Prospects. Like,
Oh my God,
learning how to work
absolutely.
off each other, like having those scouting meets and being able to like split the task evenly.
Yeah.
Just wonderful stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
this is goodbye. I really appreciate the time that you all have spent watching both of us talk tirelessly and nerdily about the prospects that interest us this week. And I really hope that you guys continue to tune in, give Sebastian all your love and support. He's going to take this thing to the moon again. You've got the skills to make it work. And if you ever find yourself needing some help, because again, I've been in the shoes of having to man this podcast alone, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Just give me a shout. I can hop on for a guest episode from time to time. But yeah, you've got this, man.
Much appreciated. I'll definitely drag you back in for a guest appearance every now and again. I'm sure the audience will be demanding those more often than we can give them. But definitely have quite a few plans set for the podcast. But I'll be digging into that more next week. We don't have to get into that nitty gritty just yet. But just know that we have fun plans ahead. But the podcast is definitely going to change a little bit because we don't have this dynamic to play off of every episode anymore. But I'll have to get a little bit more proactive with guest appearances now because I don't want to monologue every single time.
Oh yeah, it's those were the lifesavers where you had someone to talk to, because just monologuing for 30 minutes 5 days a week, it gets old even for the listeners. But this has been it for this episode and my last episode of Locked On. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think of the episode. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rating review and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For a second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. We've got Flip and Steel giving you the best advice you can find out there for your fantasy hockey team. And make sure to tune in with Sebastian as he takes us sing to the moon again. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Hadi Kalikesh with Sebastian High. Thanks for watching, and we hope you tune in next time.